Thanks, AJ. And I'd like to thank AJ a lot because he did a lot of work on organizing, getting things, structured. And there's a lot of other people that helped get this together, and I just want to say thank you. I want to thank the speakers that are coming to speak for us and just to be brave enough to speak what they feel in their hearts. I also want to thank my husband because I would have never been able to make it here this morning or be doing something like this if it weren't for him. And most importantly, I want to thank you for coming today. Most of us have heard the saying by Edmund Burke, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And I am neither a politician or a great orator, but I am a citizen of this country. And as such, I will not remain silent while great atrocities are conducted in the name of peace. We are engaged in these wars under the guise of human rights, women's rights, retribution against terrorism, to set up a viable democracy within these nations for their peoples. But as Malala Yousafzai, former member of the Afghan parliament, and she's also an author, states so perfectly, occupation will never bring liberation, and it's impossible to bring democracy by war. Also, the former Afghan prime minister once stated that NATO forces are seen as invaders, and if they do not leave the country, there will be no solution. We're intruders in wars that should not involve us, in other countries that are not our own. These nations have been fighting their own civil wars lasting for thousands of years, and our presence there now will not stop them. They do not want democracy. And due to many incidents leading up to January of 2012, the Afghan people have a deep growing resentment towards the coalition forces because of all the civilian deaths that are occurring over there. And it's fractured our already uneasy relationship that we have with them. What if a more powerful nation invaded our lands and told us that we must change the way that we live and the way that we think and our beliefs and then stay in our land for a decade? What would we do? What would we feel? And that's exactly what's happening over there, and we're becoming the terrorists ourselves. Sorry. The cost alone. These are just the two things that I want to talk about today. The cost of the war. The cost alone is so astronomical that it's hard to even wrap our brains around the numbers. The Nobel Prize winning economist Joseph Stiglitz reported that in 2007 we were spending $720 million a day for military maneuvers. That's $500,000 a minute. And in Iraq alone, from 2001 up to December 2nd of this year, our nation has spent, and let me see if I can say this right, $1,399,086,695,601. And here's some examples that I like to point out. The recent hurricane that we just had on the East Coast, we're told that it's going to cost us $62 billion in damages. That's how much happened. But we are hard-pressed to find the money to rebuild the areas. Yet in only 86 days, spending a day, what we do in the war, we could rebuild everything that has been destroyed over there and all the lives that have been destroyed. And with the money spent in the first 4 years in the invasion of Iraq, had it been left in the private sector where it belongs, we, through the free market, could have furnished everything needed to rebuild those areas devastated by the storm. And while I do believe that the money should remain in the hand of the citizens, I will use that amount that was spent in the first 4 years just for comparison. We could have furnished 1.27 million homes with renewable energy. At $2.3 billion, we could have given 1 million children health care for a whole year. And look where it's landed our economy. Our own people are in dire straits due to borrowing of funds for these wars. Our taxes are now being spent on repairing other nations' infrastructures and religious buildings. And why are we being taxed, and not for our nation's benefit, but for another country's, when we have needs also? Under the presidencies of Bush and Obama, our leaders tell us that we will be out of Iraq and Afghanistan by the end of this year, 2012. But we see our troop strength only increasing from 84,000 to 102,000 by the end of 2011, that's what it was. And I don't know that we should allow politicians who can't even do basic math to be running our country. This is the longest running war in our nation's history, and it has no end in sight. The Cato Institute stated, "Has this war become an interest unto itself? That is to say, we must win the war because it's the war that we're in. Rather than asking if the war is winnable, we should ask ourselves if the war is worth winning. Is human life an acceptable cost in exchange for war? I say no. Why are we at war at all? Is it to defend our America from invading forces? No, it's not. Benjamin Franklin said that they that can give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety. American families are losing their children in war. We blow up neighborhoods of regular innocent people just like ourselves, calling it a success for the subsequent capture of one enemy. Parents are burying their children. Children are becoming orphans and living in the streets because they're losing their parents. Do we think that's acceptable? Look into their faces. They are not acceptable casualties of war. They are human lives that we are wasting and killing senselessly and for no right cause. These are ineffectual, unending wars that have cost us nothing but the death of thousands and led us into economic ruin. The blood of our sons and our daughters, our children, and the blood of another nation's children cry out to us for peace and an opportunity to live a normal life, to end this violence and death, and let us honor our people by bringing them home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michele. Next, I'd like to welcome World War II veteran Jack Stewart.
Churches are warm and we've got a good seat. Oh, may God snap us back to our senses to fight for the children. Oh, somehow we